Marseille, January 1985. At 1600 hours, in a France Telecom booth on the Quai des Belges, a Middle Eastern man in a gray overcoat lifts the receiver, feeds a 120-unit Télécarte into the slot, and dials 13 digits. A country code, a wilaya routing code, a village exchange in northeastern Algeria. The line connects. 57 seconds later, he hangs up, pulls the card, walks away. He will vanish for the next 12 months. Somewhere in a room at Glilot, a pin goes into a wall map. It is the first of 10. Over the next decade, an Israeli analyst named Rina Neeman will build a file around exactly 1 minute a year until the pattern names the booth. This is Operation Vespertine. Welcome back to Blueprint Watch with Mark. If you appreciate long, patient tradecraft told without shortcuts, hit subscribe and stay with the file. Ain Zerga sits at the end of a paved road that curves for 45 kilometers out of the wilaya capital of Souk Ahras and climbs slowly into the cork oak country of the Algerian northeast. In the spring of 1985, the village is what it has been for 100 years. Whitewashed single-story houses under pale blue shutters, a mosque at the western end of the main street, a small colonial-era post office at the eastern end, a paved square between them large enough to hold a Friday souk, and, on the other 6 days of the week, 3 parked mopeds and a donkey. Above the village, on the ridge, cork oak plantations rise for 800 meters before they give way to scrub. Below, a dry valley runs south toward the Tunisian border. The light in Ain Zerga is hard and high in summer, silvered on the whitewash. In winter it is gray and low, filtered through the oak canopy on the ridge. The post office at the eastern end of the street bears a green and yellow sign that has read Poste, Télégraphe et Téléphone since before independence, and reads the same word in 1985. Inside, a single window with a brass grill sells stamps, weighs parcels, and pays out money orders. Behind the counter, on a wooden table pushed against the back wall, a semi-automatic switchboard with cord jacks and brass plugs handles the village's telephone traffic. There are 2 clerks. One is a heavy-shouldered man in his late 50s named Ahmed Kessab, who has worked the counter since the year of independence. The other is his younger cousin, Sami Kessab, 42 years old, quiet, careful, a good hand with the register. Between them, they cover the bureau 6 days a week from 0800 to 1800 hours. The village of Ain Zerga has no household telephone lines. What it has is the bureau. When a call comes in from the wilaya trunk, the switchboard rings. The clerk on duty answers, asks who is being called for, and if the recipient has no line, dispatches a runner to fetch them or waits for them to arrive on their own. Every call is written in a leather-bound register in a column-ruled hand. Date, time to the minute, incoming trunk, name of caller if given, name of recipient, duration. The register is informal, kept for the clerk's own reckoning against the monthly quota from the wilaya PTT. But it is a document. In the 50 years since the bureau opened, the register has never been read by anyone outside the village. That is about to change. 400 meters up the main street, in the 3rd house from the mosque, lives a widow named Zora bint Salim Toumi, born in Ain Zerga in 1919, widowed in 1958, when her husband Faisal was killed by a French patrol on the Cork Ridge above the village. Zora Toumi is illiterate, monolingual in Arabic, 66 years old in the spring of 1985, and the mother of 1 child, a son who left the village at 15, made a life somewhere in the Eastern Mediterranean, and has not been home in 27 years. Once a year, on a day set long ago between them, Zora Toumi walks the 400 meters down the main street to the post office. She sits on the wooden bench inside. She waits. That is the terminus of everything that follows in this hour and a half. Every European booth, every payphone card, every intercepted trunk, every 10 years of Israeli analytic work. All of it terminates on the wooden bench in the Ain Zerga post office, where a village widow in a headscarf waits for a telephone to ring. Zora Toumi's son is Boalem Faisal Toumi, born Ain Zerga, September 1944. He is the only surviving child of a couple who lost 3 infants before him. His father Faisal was a cork oak cutter, a trade in the region since the Roman era. His mother Zora kept the household, and when Faisal died in the winter of the Independence War, the goats and the small vegetable garden behind the third house from the mosque. The boy was 14 years old at the funeral. 6 months later, in the summer of 1959, he walked out of Ain Zerga and did not come back. The years between are compressed to their operational relevance. Tunis first, on a smuggler's flatbed truck through the border country he had walked as a child. Then Cairo, on an Egyptian-sponsored scholarship for the sons of dead independence fighters. 2 years at a technical secondary school in the Nasser City District, a place at Cairo University that he did not take up. By 1962, he is in Beirut, working the docks. By 1965, he has drifted into the outer edge of Fatah's fundraising networks in the Palestinian camps around Sabra and Shatila. He is not yet a militant. He is a driver, a message carrier, a man who is trusted with a small sum of money and told to walk somewhere with it. He is 19 years old. By 1970, he has left Fatah for one of the smaller rejectionist splinter groups that proliferate in the wake of the Six-Day War. By 1975, the year the Lebanese Civil War begins, he has become a mid-level operational planner for a faction that operates on European soil, a faction that runs small 4- and 5-man cells in the vein documented by the Federation of American Scientists in its later profile of the Abu Nidal organization. Whether Toumi was ANO adjacent, or a member of a smaller ANO parallel faction is a question the Israeli file will spend 3 years on and never settle to its own satisfaction. It doesn't matter for the operation. Toumi is what the file calls him, a mid-tier European planner in a rejectionist Palestinian faction, with a small closed cell that reports to him and to no one else. In 1980, he marries Naima Sekkak, a Libyan woman from Tripoli, in a ceremony no one photographs. They live in a 2-room apartment in the Souk al-Juma district of Tripoli, subsidized through the faction's Libyan hosts. They have no children. Naima Sekkak knows what her husband does at the same distance every faction wife knows. Which is to say, she does not ask, and he does not tell her. On the 18th of December, 1984, a European operation planned by Toumi's cell goes wrong at the setup stage in Antwerp. The operational team is arrested at a rented safe house before the target is even approached. A Belgian federal police liaison, later relayed through NATO channels to Israeli intelligence, identifies the planner behind the cell as a man known to a captured cell member only as Abu Nizar. 6 weeks later, in early February 1985, Boalem Faisal Toumi walks out of the Souk al-Juma apartment at 0600 hours on a routine morning and does not return. His wife waits 10 days before she goes to the faction cutout who handles their monthly stipend. She is told that her husband has been sent on an assignment and that she will hear when he can be heard. She never does. Naima Sekkak is 31 years old. Across the 400 rejectionist faction planners that Israeli Research Division holds files on in early 1985, Toumi is not the top of any list. He is a mid-tier name in a 10-page appendix. His photograph, a passport reproduction from the Libyan authorities, taken in 1979, is grainy, three-quarter view, mustache heavy, eyes hooded. The file makes no prediction that Boualem Faisal Toumi will vanish for 10 years and be found again by nothing but a telephone call to his mother. In the early spring of 1985, the international telephone network that connects Ain Zerga to a booth on the Marseille harbor front is a hybrid of two very different technologies. On the European end, most exchanges run programmable, stored program control switches with digital call setup logic and, from 1988 onward, out-of-band signaling system number 7 metadata. On the Algerian end, at the trunk gateway in Algiers, the switch is likewise electronic. But between Algiers and Ain Zerga, and at Ain Zerga itself, the network is still analog crossbar and, at the village bureau, a semi-automatic cord jack switchboard operated by the man on the counter. A call from Marseille to Ain Zerga in January 1985 passes through 4 hops: the Marseille Exchange, the French International Gateway, the Algerian International Gateway in Algiers, and the Wilaya trunk to Souk Ahras that feeds the village bureau. A trace in that era and on that architecture is not a matter of instruction from a control room. A trace is a chain of physical requests. The originating call is held on the line at each intermediate exchange. An operator at each exchange must be reached by a supervisor and told to identify the trunk carrying the specific call in question. The trunk is walked back to the previous exchange. The previous exchange is called. The process is repeated. The literature on switchboard tracing from the late crossbar era gives a floor of 3 to 5 minutes per hop under good conditions. 4 hops is 15 to 20 minutes at best. A call that ends before the trace has completed the second hop is a call that cannot be traced. Boualem Faisal Toumi hangs up in Marseille at 57 seconds. This is not accidental. It is the first rule of his operation against himself. He knows the network he is calling into. He was a signals private during the compulsory Egyptian National Service months in the late 1950s, and he has kept up with the tradecraft literature as a matter of professional habit. 60 seconds is his ceiling. Below 60 seconds, the technology of the era cannot find him inside the call. The technology is about to change, but the change is uneven and slow. The International Telegraph and Telephone Consultative Committee, the CCITT, will formally approve Signaling System Number 7, SS7, as an international standard in 1988. With the Q700 series recommendations published in the CCITT Blue Book of that year. SS7 will not carry the voice of the call. It will carry the metadata about the call, the calling number, the called number, the timestamp to the second, the duration, the trunk group, the originating switch, and a flag if the calling exchange is a payphone. SS7 will not shorten the human trace time inside the call. What it will do is guarantee that, after the call is over, the metadata has been captured at every gateway switch along the route and can be retrieved on a written request, weeks or months later, by anyone with the right liaison relationship to the right national carrier. This is the technical wall that defines the first 3 years of the hunt against Toumi, before SS7 is deployed on the France-Algeria route in about 1990. The operation is looking for its target with methods so slow they cannot survive the 60-second rule. It cannot trace him in the call. It cannot pull his calling number from a metadata database that does not yet exist. It cannot even, in most cases, know which European country the call came from until the Algerian PTT writes back to the request submitted 3 months earlier. The first 4 dots on the wall map are placed there almost by feel. The tradecraft has to shift. It shifts from the call to the surface, from what happens in the 60 seconds to what remains on the ground after the caller has walked away. a discarded card in a bin, a payphone cash entry in a coin collection ticket, a CCTV frame in a station concourse that no one has thought to keep beyond 90 days, a leather-bound register in a village post office at the far end of a wilaya road. The operations method has to become, and stays, a method of surfaces. That is why it takes 10 years. Rina Neeman is 32 years old in the winter of 1985, and in her 7th year at the research division of Mossad at the Glilot compound, north of Tel Aviv on the coastal plain. Her office is on the 2nd floor of the analytic building, a metal desk against a wall of pinned wire service photographs, an army-issue rotary telephone in the corner, a card index of open files stacked behind her on a shelf that is always one file too full. She has spent the first 6 years of her career on Palestinian faction rosters, 3rd rank of importance, which is to say the ones no one else wanted. She has developed the habit of looking at incoming request logs from Tevel, the foreign liaison arm, in the way another analyst might read a newspaper, because occasionally something in the routing appears that does not, on its face, mean anything. And she has learned that those are the ones worth the second look. On the 17th of February, 1986, a Tevel liaison officer named Menachem Livneh, whose real name is not important and who appears in this operation nowhere else, files a routine call detail record request with the Algerian PTT liaison at the Israeli Foreign Ministry under a cover reason relating to a Belgian counter-narcotics inquiry Tevel is quietly supporting. The request asks for a summary of international incoming calls to the Souk Ahras Wilaya on the 15th of January 1986, in a 2-hour window around 1600 village time. The Algerian PTT returns the request 9 weeks later, in the form of a mimeographed sheet listing 11 calls. Livneh does not read it carefully. The counter-narcotics angle went nowhere. He files the sheet in the appendix of the operation folder and forgets about it. Neeman reads it. She's not looking for anything. She's doing what she does with Tevel returns, which is check them against Research Division's own year-old logs to see if any pattern crosses the two databases. One line on the mimeographed sheet catches her. An incoming call terminating at the Ain Zerga village bureau at 1601 hours from a French telecom trunk originating at Marseille, 59 seconds in duration. Recipient logged as the widow Toumi. She pulls the Research Division's own log of Marseille originating short international calls to Algerian termini in January 1985, on the small chance that the same pattern has an older twin. It does. A call at 1600 hours on the 11th of January 1985 from a Marseille payphone booth on the Quai des Belges. 57 seconds, terminus Ain Zerga village bureau, recipient the widow Toumi. 2 calls, a year apart. Same day of year window, same time to the minute, same terminus, same recipient. 2 different Western European origin cities, and within the same city year to year, 2 different booths. Both under 60 seconds. Both to a woman whose surname appears on a Research Division watch list at the very bottom of the 4th appendix. Toumi, mother of Boualem Faisal Toumi, faction planner. Whereabouts unknown since December 1984. Neeman walks the sheet up 2 flights to the office of her section head, Aviva Pade, a woman in her early 40s, 10 years senior, whose reputation inside the division is for cold arithmetic and for not opening files. Pade reads the sheet for 4 minutes without speaking. She looks at Neeman. She says, 1 week a month, not more, and don't put it on any board. She initials the top of the sheet in green ink, the section head's private mark, not the operational one, and hands it back. Neeman leaves. She has just opened the file that will run her career for the next 9 years and 5 months, though she does not yet know it. Back at her metal desk, She pins the mimeographed sheet to the corkboard behind her chair. She writes on a fresh index card, "To me. 2 calls, not a coincidence." She dates it 17 February 1986. She staples the mimeograph to the card. She puts the card in the middle drawer of her desk. That night, she does not go home at the ordinary hour. She stays late, drinks the analytic building's terrible coffee, and reads every scrap of open-source reporting she can find on the Souk Aras Wilaya, the Ain Zerga Bureau, the vanished planner, and the widow who is his mother. She is looking for anything that says the calls could be something else. She does not find it. She goes home at 0100 hours and does not sleep well for the next 3,449 nights. The first thing Neeman does with the file in the spring of 1986 is refuse to widen it. 2 data points do not make a pattern. 2 data points with the same signature at either end make a pattern that can vanish on the 3rd data point. She protects the file by keeping it small. She does not write reports. She does not brief. She adds one thing to the corkboard behind her chair: a small wall map of the Western Mediterranean, 28 centimeters by 40, pinned at the 4 corners with steel drawing pins. On the 15th of January 1987, she takes down the map, unpins it, and pins it back up on the wall next to her desk, where she can see it from her chair without turning her head. She puts a red pin on Marseille and a red pin on Naples. She writes the year under each pin in a fine mechanical pencil. She waits. On the 13th of January 1987, in the concourse of the Estacio de França in Barcelona, a Middle Eastern man in a raincoat over a dark suit uses a Telefonica coin payphone in the second from the end booth of the western wall to make a call. He feeds the coin slot with 750 peseta pieces. He dials 13 digits. The line connects. 59 seconds later, he hangs up, walks out of the western exit, and disappears into the Bari Gothic. 2 hours later, a cleaner empties the booth's coin cash collection tin as part of the station's 4-hourly circuit and takes the tin to the Telefonica cash office at the station rear, which is where the tin is emptied into a canvas bag and its ticket is printed. The ticket records the coin denominations paid in that 4-hour window and the number of international connections. No one at Telefonica has any reason to isolate that particular call. The ticket goes into a monthly accounting bundle. The bundle is filed in a Telefonica archive in Madrid. Neeman's request to Tevel goes out on the 20th of February, 1987. It arrives at the Guardia Civil Liaison in Madrid on the 3rd of March. It is passed to Telefonica on the 17th of March. The Estacio de França cash ticket is retrieved and cross-referenced on the 9th of April. On the 2nd of May, a Guardia Civil officer in plain clothes walks the western wall of the Estacio concourse and stands at each of the 6 booths in turn, looking at them the way an analyst thousands of kilometers away would want him to look at them. He finds nothing. There is nothing to find. The cleaner who emptied the tin has been on holiday since the middle of April. The coin cash record, when eventually cross-referenced, tells them the booth and the 4-hour window, but not the booth-to-caller pairing. Neeman gets the confirmation on the 28th of May, 4.5 months after the call. She adds a red pin to Barcelona. 3 dots, 3 cities, 3 consecutive Januaries. Same hour, same terminus, same recipient. All 3 calls under 60 seconds. Neeman turns to her section head that Friday afternoon and asks Pade to widen her time allocation on the file from 1 week a month to 2. Pade says no. She says, "Bring me the 4th." The 4th is added on the 14th of January, 1988. The Algerian PTT register at Ain Zerga records an incoming international call at 1601 hours, duration 58 seconds. Incoming trunk labeled by the clerk as Italy South. Sami Kesub, the younger clerk, has learned to note the trunk designation because his cousin Ahmed thinks it looks professional. The recipient is the widow Toumi. The origin city cannot be pinpointed from the Algerian side. The CDR request to the Italian PTTSIP returns 11 days later, on the 25th of January, and identifies the origin as the second from the left SIP booth inside the concourse of Stazione Palermo Centrale. A discarded 5,000 lire SIP magnetic stripe card is not recovered. The booth is emptied of debris that morning. Palermo. Neeman pins it. 4 cities. 4 consecutive Januaries. She stands in front of her wall map for a long time and does not turn back to her desk. Pade, who has been walking the corridor to the copy room, stops in Neeman's doorway. She looks at the map. She says, 2 weeks a month. The years the Israeli operation later refers to only as the years before the metadata are 1985 through 1989. In those years, the file grows by exactly 1 dot per year, and each dot arrives late and imperfect. It arrives late because SS7 is not yet carrier deployed on the country pair whose route the call takes. The metadata that will later be pulled from a gateway switch's call detail record database in 11 days simply does not exist to be pulled. Each dot has to be reconstructed from the physical record on the ground. The Algerian village register at the terminus, the European PTT's coin collection or magnetic card cash reconciliation at the origin, and the memory of any human witness at either end who happens to have been present. The reconstruction takes 3 to 5 months and returns, at most, the origin city, and in the good years, the origin booth. In January 1989, the 5th call is made. The village register at Ain Zerga records the call at 1600 hours, duration 54 seconds. Recipient, the widow Toumi. The incoming trunk carries a Portuguese country identifier. The CDR request to Marconi, the Portuguese international carrier, is filed on the 18th of February and returns on the 12th of April. The call originated at a Marconi coin payphone at Rossio station in Lisbon, Western Concourse, 3rd booth from the north. A canvass of the station's staff on the 6th of May, 6 days shy of the 4-month mark, produces no witnesses. Rossio in mid-January is a busy station. A man in a coat at a payphone for less than a minute is not a memorable event. Neeman adds the Lisbon pin. She has now placed pins on Marseille, Naples, Barcelona, Palermo, and Lisbon. She has an unbroken run of 5 consecutive Januaries, each in a different country. The Internal Research Division log for the file, still handwritten, still in her desk drawer, not yet on any operational system, reads 5 entries long. She writes, at the bottom of the 5th entry, a paragraph she will still be able to quote from memory 5 years later. The subject is disciplined, ritualized, and singular. The subject calls the same recipient at the same clock minute, in the same fortnight of the same month once a year, from a Western European payphone. The subject changes country every year. The subject holds the call under 60 seconds. The subject has never given his name. The subject has never allowed a second call. The subject is one person and has been the same person for 5 years. She takes the paragraph to Aviva Pade in September 1989 and asks Pade to sign off on formalizing the file. Pade reads the paragraph. Pade puts it on her own desk, weights it with a paperweight, and says, "The paragraph is right. The file stays informal. Come back to me when the trace can complete." Pade is not being cynical. She is applying the doctrine that has kept Research Division out of the trap of investing prestige and manpower in cases that never close. The file is one thing, the operation is another. The operation begins when the technology to move on, it exists. The doctrine is documented in the institutional memory of Research Division back to the early 1970s. It is the reason files that eventually close. The 12-year Baghdad carpet dealer file, the multi-year Cairo locksmith file, the Vienna interpreter file, closed cleanly. And it is the reason files that stayed hopeful and grew large, the ones Pade does not name to Neeman by name, closed disastrously or not at all. Neeman accepts the doctrine. She goes back to her desk. She takes the 5-entry log out of her drawer, reads it once more, and puts it back. Above her metal desk, the wall map now carries 5 red pins. She writes on a fresh card and pins it in the corner of the map. 6th, January 1990. Country unknown. Call under 60 seconds. Recipient, the widow Toomey. The card is a promise to herself. The 6th call, she has just decided, will be the year the operation stops, depending on the pre-SS7 methods. It will be the year she gets a card out of a European bin before it is emptied. On the 22nd of March, 1988, 6 weeks after the 4th call, Rina Neeman flies from Ben Gurion to Larnaca International on a Cyprus Airways daylight service under the name Rachel Nussbaum, on a scholar's visa notionally connected to a Nicosia symposium on Mediterranean economic history. The legend is thin. A woman with no publications on Mediterranean economic history attending a symposium on it is not the strongest possible cover. But it is unremarkable, boring, and legally clean, which is what a Research Division analyst needs when she is stepping outside the compound wall for the first time in 6 years. In Nicosia, she meets a Caesarea case officer whose name in the file will only ever read Uzel, and whose real identity Neeman will not learn for another 6 years. Uzel is the man who, 4 years later, will take over the operational side of the file. On this day, he is the Cyprus Station's deputy for Southern Mediterranean assets, and he is doing Neeman a favor. On the 24th of March, Uzel flies south under a different cover into Algiers, drives east through the night, and by dawn on the 25th is in the coffee house across the square from the Ain Zerga PTT Bureau. He is dressed as a returning émigré Algerian, which is a legend he has held for 2 operations already and which sits on him easily. He orders mint tea. He watches the bureau for 3 hours. He watches the widow Toomey walk the 400 meters down the main street at 10:30 in the morning. She's not there for a call. She has come to collect a money order sent to her by a cousin in Constantine, an ordinary widow's errand. He watches her walk back. He watches Ahmed Kassab at the counter until 1:10, when the older cousin is relieved by the younger, Sami. He watches Sami work the switchboard for 3 international calls in the course of the afternoon, none of them relevant. At 1600 hours, he is still in the coffee house. Nothing happens. The Ain Zerga Bureau receives no international call at 1600 hours on the 25th of March, 1988. Because the 25th of March is not the 2nd week of January. Uzel is not there to intercept a call, he is there to see the object. The bureau is a real object. The switchboard is a real object. The leather-bound register is on the wooden table behind the counter, ordinary, unlocked. The clerks are 2 ordinary men doing an ordinary job. The widow Toomey is an ordinary widow. The village square is an ordinary village square in an ordinary spring afternoon in the cork country of the wilaya of Souk Ahras. Uzel puts none of this on paper while he is in the country. He commits every detail of it to memory, drives out of Ain Zerga at 1830, is in Souk Ahras by 2000, in Constantine by 2300, and on an Air Algérie flight to Rome the following morning. In Nicosia, on the 2nd of April, he sits with Neeman at a corner table in a Greek Cypriot cafe off Ledra Street. and describes what he saw for 2 hours and 40 minutes, without notes. Neeman writes it down while he speaks. At the end of it, she has, for the first time, a picture in her head of the terminus that is not a mimeographed sheet. The switchboard has a mahogany case. The cord jacks are brass. The register is bound in dark green leather with a cloth spine. The clerk on the afternoon shift, the younger one, has a habit of straightening his mustache with a thumb when he is thinking. The widow Toomey is roughly 5 feet 4 inches tall, walks with a slight forward lean, wears a dark headscarf and a dark abaya, and takes 7 minutes to walk the 400 meters because she stops twice at neighbors' doors along the way. Nothing in Neeman's file changes on the 2nd of April, 1988. Everything in Neeman's understanding of the file changes. She flies back to Tel Aviv on the 4th of April as Rachel Nussbaum, having attended 2 of the 4 scheduled sessions of the Mediterranean Economic History Symposium, and returns to her metal desk at Glilot on the 6th. She takes down the 28-centimeter wall map. She replaces it with a 50-centimeter wall map, on which the Souk Aras Wilaya is a specific dot, and the village of Ain Zerga can be drawn in as a smaller dot in fine pencil. She puts 1 blue pin on the village. It is the only blue pin on the wall. She will never move it. She writes a paragraph that afternoon that she does not show to Paddy and that is not, strictly speaking, part of the file. It reads, "The terminus is a real village. The mother is a real woman. The clerk is a real man. Everything upstream of them is metadata. Everything downstream of them is life. The file exists on the boundary." She puts the paragraph in her middle desk drawer, under the mimeograph. She never looks at it again in the 6 years and 3 months that follow. It is still there in July 1995, when the file closes, and it is still there in the archive box in 1999, when the file is officially retired. January 1990 opens on a Mistral. The wind has been down from the Rhone Valley for 3 days when, at 15:58 hours local time on the 11th of January, in a France Telecom booth on the Promenade des Anglais opposite the Hotel Negresco, a Middle Eastern man in a beige raincoat over a dark suit lifts the receiver, feeds a 120-unit Télécarte into the slot, and dials 13 digits. The line connects at 1600 hours exactly. He speaks for 54 seconds. He hangs up. He removes the card. He turns his back to the wind, walks 11 paces to a wire mesh wastebasket bolted to a lamppost, and drops the card in the basket. He continues east along the promenade, past the tourists who are not on the promenade in a January Mistral, and disappears into the Vieille Ville after 7 minutes. He drops the card because he has consumed all the units on it during a series of local calls in Marseille the previous morning on a different card. And this one is a decoy, used at the last for the annual call, and then thrown away because he has no further use for a Nice-bought Télécarte in a city he does not intend to visit again for a decade. He has done this every year since 1988, when he first understood, from a piece of trade press journalism, that the chip on a French Télécarte held an ordered write pattern of its recent transactions. Discarding the card is a rule. The rule breaks on the 11th of January 1990 because Neeman has spent 9 months arranging for it to break. In February 1989, she had walked to the office of Menachem Livne at Tevel and asked him a specific question. How quickly, on the annual call day, could DST, the Direction de la Surveillance du Territoire, the French domestic security service through the window, dispatch a plainclothes officer to a specified France Telecom booth in a specified French city with instructions to physically empty the booth's bin within 30 minutes of a specified minute? Livne had put the question to Paris in April. Paris had returned an answer in July. With prior notice and a plausible cover reason, 30 minutes was achievable in Marseille, Nice, Lyon, or Paris on a weekday. Neeman had spent the autumn quietly narrowing her prediction. She had, by December 1989, 3 cities on her short list, of which Nice was the third. Chosen because the Mistral pattern of the previous 4 Januaries suggested a subject who did not mind the wind and preferred quieter promenades to indoor concourses. At 16:20 hours on the 11th of January 1990, a DST officer in a gray wool coat walks the Promenade des Anglais at a deliberately unhurried pace, past the booth opposite the Negresco, past the wire mesh basket on the lamppost, and does not stop. He continues to the next basket, 30 meters east, and does not stop. At 16:28 hours, he turns and walks back to the first basket, lifts the metal insert out of it, and puts it in a Galeries Lafayette shopping bag he has been carrying folded in his coat pocket. He walks the insert back to a black Peugeot 405 parked on Rue Paradis. He puts the bag on the passenger seat. He drives to the DST regional office on Rue Grimaldi. The insert is inventoried at 17:14 hours. The bin contains a torn Nice Matin newspaper, half a Fanta can, 6 spent SNCF ticket stubs, a foil chewing gum wrapper, 3 empty cigarette packets, and 1 used 120-unit France Télécom Télécarte. The card is bagged, sealed, tagged, and forwarded to the DST technical branch in Paris by courier the same evening. On the 14th of January, the technical branch's report reaches Tevel via the standard liaison channel. It reads, in the operative section, as follows. Card reference number preserved. Last 3 call destination fingerprints on chip, in order of most recent first. 1. An Ain Zerga Wilaya, Souk Ahras, Algeria destination. Duration 54 seconds. 2. A Nice local hotel switchboard destination. Duration 2 minutes, 11 seconds. 3. A Marseille local bakery destination. Duration 1 minute, 48 seconds. Purchased Nice tobacco kiosk 121, Rue Pastorelli, 10th of January 1990. Cash. The card itself is couriered from Paris to Tel Aviv in a diplomatic pouch on the 16th of January. Neeman holds it in her hand at Glilot on the 18th. It is the first physical object in the file. She does not pin it to the wall. She puts it in the middle drawer of her desk beside the paragraph she wrote on the 6th of April, 1988. In the autumn of 1991, Aviva Pade calls Rina Neeman into her office and says, without preamble, it's time to name it. Neeman has, by then, 6 dots on the wall map: Marseille, Naples, Barcelona, Palermo, Lisbon, and Nice. And the 7th added the previous January in Athens. 7 consecutive Januaries. 7 Western European countries, or, in the case of Palermo and Naples, 7 separate origin cities. The physical Télécarte in her middle drawer has been joined by a photocopy of the Athens OTE coin cash reconciliation for the 1600 window of the 9th of January 1991, which documents a 51-second international call to Ain Zerga from a Syntagma Square booth. Neeman writes the operation title on a fresh index card and pins it to the top of the wall map, above the blue pin on Ain Zerga. Operation Vespertine. She writes below it, in smaller pencil. Internal target code name: Orchard. The name Vespertine she chooses because it means of the evening. The annual call arrives at the Ain Zerga Bureau at 1600 village time, which is late afternoon in January, the hour the shadows lengthen across the whitewashed square. The code name Orchard she chooses because the Wilaya is cork oak country, and because Orchard is, in her personal analytic slang, the file that never fruits. Both names go on paper for the first time on the 28th of November, 1991. From that day, The file has a formal reference number in the Research Division indexing system, a monthly time allocation of 120 hours drawn from Neeman's schedule and 40 hours from a junior's, and a compartment inside Research Division that reads, Barbet, Turako, and Sommet only, if approved. The junior arrives in the first week of December. His name is Tomer Siegel. He is 26 years old, on secondment from Unit 8200, quiet, mathematical, uncomfortable in social conversation, and allergic to metaphors. Neeman shows him the wall map on his first afternoon and says, without ornament, 7 annual calls, 7 cities, same terminus, same recipient, same clock minute, under 60 seconds, 10 more to go, maybe less. We build the pattern. When the pattern predicts the booth, we hand it to Caesarea. Siegel looks at the map for 4 minutes without speaking. He says, the prediction won't come from the cities. It'll come from the country changes. Neeman does not reply. She will, in the 10 weeks that follow, come to see that Siegel is right, and that Siegel is worth the compartment. Siegel's contribution in the first 6 months is to build a small computational model on the compact LTE laptop that has been recently issued to Research Division for pattern work of exactly this kind. A machine with a 10 MHz 8086 processor and a 40 megabyte hard disk that runs in 1992. More analytic weight than the entire Research Division was running in 1980. His model treats the 7 observed cities as points in a space defined not by geography, but by the ferry and rail geometry of the Western Mediterranean. His working hypothesis is that Toomey does not fly to the origin city because a flight leaves too complete a paper trail, but travels overland by rail and by ferry, hopping through cities that are more easily reached from wherever he is based than from a rectangular map. Siegel cannot yet name where Toomey is based. He is content at first to work backward from the pattern. The first prediction his model outputs, on the 9th of March 1992, is that the 8th annual call will originate in Cyprus at a CYTA payphone in either Nicosia or Larnaca. The 8th annual call originates on the 14th of January 1992 at a CYTA coin payphone at Larnaca International Airport, arrival hall, second booth from the western wall, duration 52 seconds. Siegel receives the CDR confirmation on the 3rd of February. He sits at his desk for a long time. Then he walks to Neeman's desk, puts the printout in front of her, and says, "The model works." It is the first sentence he has spoken to her in 3 weeks that is not about coffee. Neeman does not celebrate. She adds an 8th red pin to the wall map. She writes on a fresh index card, "Model works. 9th, January 1993. Country to be predicted." She puts the card in her middle drawer with the Nice Télécarte and the paragraph and the mimeograph. Then she calls Aviva Pade's office and asks for a meeting. When Pade sits down, Neeman shows her Siegel's printout. Pade reads it once. She looks at Neeman. She says, "Bring Caesarea in for the next one." Neeman says, "Not yet. The country isn't the booth. We don't move until the pattern is the booth." In the first week of February 1992, a cable goes out from Glilot to the Nicosia station of Caesarea, addressed to the station chief and copied to the deputy for Southern Mediterranean assets. The cable requests that the station appoint a mission commander for a research division-led operation of no immediate operational tempo, but of indefinite duration, with the mission commander to hold the file at station and to be available for 1 meeting per calendar quarter at Research Division's request. The mission commander named on the cable is Yehuda Feinstein. His code name is Uzel. He is the man who, 4 years earlier, drank mint tea across the square from the Ein Zerga PTT Bureau and watched the widow Toomey walk 7 minutes down the main street. Feinstein flies to Tel Aviv on the 11th of February. Neeman meets him at Glilot on the 12th. It is the first time she has laid eyes on him. He is in his early 50s, sandy-haired, unhurried, dressed like a middle manager at an insurance firm. He listens to her walk through the wall map for 2 hours. He asks 3 questions. The first is whether she has considered that Toomey might not be one man. Whether the pattern could be sustained by a small cell of couriers traveling on behalf of a hidden principal. Neeman says she has considered it and rejected it. On the basis of the intercepted 5-second fragment, which, she anticipates this, Siegel is expected to produce sometime in the coming 2 years, and on the basis of what she calls the rhythm of the call. She cannot say what the rhythm of the call sounds like. She says, however, that she has read every European PTT transcript of every second and third-hand report from every clerk who has answered the switchboard at Ein Zerga on an annual call afternoon, and every clerk has said the same thing. The caller speaks briefly, in a voice that does not vary. It is one man. Feinstein's second question is what she wants from Caesarea. She says, "I want the file to have a home outside my desk drawer. I want a forward station within an hour of Larnaca, so that when the pattern names the booth, the team can be on the ground in Europe within 12 hours. Feinstein's third question is what she wants Caesarea not to do. She says, "Do not move until the pattern predicts the booth. Not the country, the booth. And when we move, we identify. We do not kill. The kill decision is not mine, and it is not yours." Feinstein nods once. He says, "Understood." He does not smile. In the 2 hours of the meeting, he has not smiled once. Neeman likes him for it. The Nicosia forward station opens as a formal compartment of Operation Vespertine on the 1st of March, 1992. The station's role is passive throughout the operational years. It maintains standing legends for 4 field observers, whose eventual deployment will be into Marseille, Naples, and Palermo, Barcelona and Lisbon, and Athens. It maintains a standing air liaison brief with Larnaca International's operations desk for short-notice European connections. And it holds a physical copy of the wall map that mirrors Neeman's map at Glilot, updated by cable at the close of each January. The station chief attends every quarterly review. Feinstein flies to Tel Aviv on the 2nd Tuesday of March, June, September, and December for 8 consecutive quarters without missing a meeting. The doctrine Feinstein and Neeman agree on that first day sits on paper for 3 years and 8 months without ever being tested. No move until the pattern predicts the booth. When it does, identify first, kill second, and separately. In every meeting through the summer of 1992, the summer of 1993, the summer of 1994, Feinstein asks the same question at the end of the review. Is it the booth yet? And in every meeting through those 3 summers, Neeman gives the same answer. It is the country. It is not the booth. Feinstein flies back to Nicosia. Neeman goes back to her desk. The wall map acquires its 9th pin in January 1993, its 10th in January 1994. Siegel's model refines. The forward station holds. The recruitment of Sami Kesab, the younger of the 2 rotating clerks at the Ein Zerga PTT Bureau, is the softest operation Neeman has ever asked Junction to run. It takes 11 months from first contact to standing arrangement, and it produces 1 output only. On the annual call day, the clerk on the afternoon shift keeps the year's page of the incoming trunk register open on the desk, waits for the 1600 call, notes the recipient by name. and leaves the register open on the desk for one further hour, at the end of which he closes the book and returns to his usual routine. He is never asked to record anything extra. He is never asked to speak to the caller. He is never asked to say the caller's name aloud. He is asked only to do, once a year, what he is going to do anyway. Mark the call, name the recipient, and go on with his afternoon. Sami Kesab has a nephew, Ibrahim Kesab, 28 years old, who moved from Ain Zerga to Nicosia in 1988 to work in the Cypriot construction trade. Ibrahim Kesab's paperwork in Cyprus is the ordinary blend of Algerian émigré labor bureaucracy: visas, work permits, social insurance registrations, that any young man in a foreign city has to keep up with. In September 1992, Ibrahim Kesab is introduced through a Cypriot Algerian community center volunteer to a Greek Cypriot solicitor whose specialty is émigré paperwork and whose small kindnesses to the Algerian community are, by the standards of Nicosia in the early 90s, well known and much appreciated. The solicitor is a junction contact. He is not a scion. He is a low-level asset whose service to Israeli intelligence is limited to a monthly meeting at which he mentions who is doing well and who is not. He does not know that Ibrahim Kesab's uncle in Ain Zerga will be recruited 11 months later. When he is asked, in October 1992, to expedite Ibrahim Kesab's residence permit renewal, an ordinary request the solicitor would have expedited for anyone, he does so without asking why he is being asked. Ibrahim Kesab's residence permit is renewed in 5 days rather than the customary 11 weeks. He is pleased. He writes to his uncle in Ain Zerga to say so. Sami Kesab, reading the letter aloud to his older cousin Ahmed at the bureau counter in December 1992, is grateful in an ordinary way for the kindness of the solicitor in Nicosia. In February 1993, when a returning émigré Algerian friend of Ibrahim's, a friend whose real employer is the Cyprus station of Caesarea, visits Ain Zerga on a nostalgic trip through the Wilaya, he mentions, over a coffee at the same coffeehouse Feinstein sat in 4 years earlier, that if Sami Kesab ever needed a favor in Cyprus for his nephew, the solicitor's door was open. Nothing is asked. Nothing is offered. The friend leaves. In May 1993, Ibrahim Kesab is arrested in Nicosia on a paperwork technicality relating to his work permit. A small, resolvable matter, engineered by the solicitor with the friend's help so that its resolution can be traded. The friend visits Ain Zerga in June and offers the trade to Sami Kesab directly. The paperwork will be quietly resolved, and in exchange, Sami Kesab will, once a year, on a day of Sami's own choosing within a 2-week window, keep the day's page of the register open on the desk for 1 hour after the 1600 international call to the widow Toomey, and name the recipient by name in his usual careful hand. He is told nothing about why. He is told that no harm will come to the widow Toomey, no harm will come to Ain Zerga, and no harm will come to his family. He is asked to consider the offer. Sami Kesab considers it for 4 weeks. In late July 1993, he tells the friend at the same coffeehouse that he will do it. He does not ask what the register is being read for. He never learns his role's true weight. On the 11th of January 1994, on his afternoon shift, the 1600 call arrives from a booth on the Corso Vittorio Emanuele in Genoa. Duration 56 seconds. Incoming trunk, Italy North. Sami Kesab writes it in the register in his usual careful hand, names the widow Toomey as the recipient, and leaves the register open on the desk for 1 hour. At 17:10, he closes the book and puts on the kettle. On the 12th of January, the same friend passes through Ain Zerga on a bus and drinks a coffee at the coffeehouse. On the 13th of January, the register's 9th of January through 14th of January page is a photograph in a Nicosia darkroom. On the 15th of January, a cable reaches Glilot naming Genoa. Neeman adds the 9th red pin, E. The Unit 8200 contribution to Operation Vespertine begins in late 1993. After Siegel has spent 18 months at Neeman's shoulder learning the file's texture, and after his Unit 8200 parent command has, at Neeman's request through Payphone, formally tasked a small overlay effort against a specific set of terminating numbers on the Algerian PSTN. The Ain Zerga Bureau's terminating number, now known through the Kessab register photographs and the Algerian PTT liaison, is placed on a Unit 8200 watch list. The specific international trunks feeding the Algerian gateway from Marseille, Nice, Genoa, Barcelona, Naples, Palermo, Athens, Lisbon, and Malta are tasked for opportunistic intercept in a 1600 Algerian time window on the second Wednesday, second Thursday, and second Friday of each January. The overlay is not aimed at the caller's number, which will always be a payphone and therefore of no intelligence value on its own. It is aimed at the voice itself in the 60 seconds of the call. 9 trunks, 3 days, 48-minute windows per day. Call duration under 1 minute. In statistical terms, the probability that the intercept is positioned on the exact trunk in the exact minute of the annual call in any given year is small but not negligible. If the operation runs for 2 more years, it becomes appreciable. If it runs for 4 more years, it becomes probable. It succeeds on the second Thursday of September 1994, which is not January and not even an annual call day. What succeeds is not what Siegel had planned to succeed. On a Unit 8200 routine sweep of the Marseille-Algiers international trunk, a 5-second voice fragment is captured that carries the acoustic signature of the Ain Zerga Bureau's ringback tone as its background, and a single male voice speaking in Palestinian inflected Arabic, saying only the word Naam, the word for yes. The fragment is 5 seconds and 31 milliseconds long. The voice, on subsequent linguistic analysis by Unit 8200's Arabic dialects section, is a male in his late 40s or early 50s, native Arabic speaker, Palestinian dialectal features overlaying an underlying Algerian Maghrebi base. The vowel coloring of a man who was born in North Africa and raised in the Levant. The 5 seconds are not enough to voice print. They are enough to know that the caller is one person and always has been. They are enough when Neeman and Feinstein look at Siegel's spectrogram in the Nicosia forward station in late October 1994, to sit for a long time without speaking. The fragment does not tell them where he is calling from that day. It tells them, indirectly, something more useful. The September call, unlike the 10 previous annual calls, is not an annual call in the ritual sense. It is a call the target has made on his own initiative, off the calendar. In the entire 10-year record of Toomey's phone discipline, this is the first anomaly. Neeman spends 3 weeks staring at the spectrogram printout on her metal desk. Siegel spends 3 weeks pulling adjacent day sweeps from every trunk in the watch list. In November 1994, they conclude that the September call was, in all probability, a wrong number call. Toomey had dialed a family alternate number in Ain Zerga and reached the bureau by mistake, said yes in response to Kessab's greeting, realized the error, and hung up before he had used more than 5 seconds of a rule that says 60. The clerk on duty that afternoon was Ahmed Kessab, who noted the call in the register as no name given, no message, dropped after 5 seconds, and thought no more of it. The anomaly is Neeman's opening. She writes, on the 7th of November, 1994, the paragraph that will underlie everything that happens in the 6 months that follow. The paragraph reads, "The subject has, for the first time in 10 years, called a number that is not his mother's channel. He is under a stress that has broken his rule. The next annual call, the 10th, will not be an ordinary annual call. He will call from a city he has not called from before, at a time consistent with the January ritual, and he will hold to the 60-second discipline. But he will also, in some way we cannot yet predict, do something he has not done in 10 years. The 10th call is the call the operation should be built around. The winter of 1994 to 1995 is the coldest that Rina Neeman has ever experienced at Glilot. It is not the weather. Tel Aviv has a mild winter. It is the room. In the 10 weeks between the 15th of November, 1994 and the last week of January 1995, she stops leaving her office except to walk to the copy room and to Aviva Pade's door. She takes her meals from a plastic tray Segel brings her from the compound canteen. She loses 6 kilograms. The wall map has, by late November, 10 red pins on it. Marseille, Naples, Barcelona, Palermo, Lisbon, Nice, Athens, Larnaca, Rome, added in 1993, 6th booth on Piazza della Repubblica, and Genoa, added in 1994. 10 cities, 9 countries, 1, Italy, has appeared 3 times, in Naples, Palermo, and Rome. And for the same reason Segel's model has always assumed, in the different cities of the peninsula rather than the same one twice. The blue pin remains at Ein Zerga. The 11th pin, the one the file has been built for, is not yet placed. The 11th call will be made on the second Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday of January 1995. From a European city Toomey has not yet used, and, if Segel's model holds, from a specific booth in a specific concourse whose identity the model should now be able to name. Segel runs the model on the 14th of December 1994. He runs it in 3 configurations, a baseline that treats all 1994 data as equivalent to previous years, a variant that applies a heavy weight to the September wrong number anomaly, and a variant that adds to the pattern a set of geopolitical constraints derived from the tightening security climate in the Western Mediterranean over the previous year. All 3 configurations produce the same output. All 3 name the same city, Lisbon. All 3 name the same station, Rossio. All 3 name the same booth, the 3rd from the north on the Western Concourse, the same booth from which the 5th call was made in 1989. The date, in the 3-day window, Wednesday, 3rd of May, 1995. The date is what breaks the pattern in a way none of the previous 10 annual calls have broken it. The call has always been made in the 2nd week of January. The 11th call, on the model's output, would arrive in early May. Neeman stares at the spreadsheet on Segel's screen for 4 minutes. She says, "Why May?" Segel says, "It's not the ritual anymore. It's a hazard-adjusted best guess about when he can safely travel to Lisbon. He can't travel in January 1995. Something has happened in his sanctuary that makes the 2nd week impossible. He will call at the first window he can, and he will hold to a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday pattern. The model puts him in Lisbon on a Wednesday early in May." Neeman does not ask the follow-up question, which is what has happened in his sanctuary. She does not ask it because neither of them will know for another 6 weeks. Until a Tevel intercept of Libyan air traffic control chatter in early February 1995 reveals that a rejectionist faction planner known to the Libyans by Cunha had been quietly asked to leave Tripoli in late 1994 for reasons of Libyan diplomatic optics. And by the time the Libyan detail reaches Glilot, it is corroboration, not cause. Neeman writes the prediction on the whiteboard behind her desk in permanent marker on the 18th of December, 1994. She writes, "Lisbon, Rossio Station, Western Concourse, third booth from the north. Wednesday, 3rd of May, 1995. 1600 village time. Call under 60 seconds. She staples the paragraph of reasoning underneath. Pade reads the whiteboard on the 19th of December. She initials the paragraph in green ink. She says, "Tell Feinstein." Neeman phones Nicosia the same evening on the rotary secure line. Feinstein takes the call. He listens. He says, "We move to April preparation. Cable your requirements to the station by the 10th of January." He hangs up. In Nicosia, Feinstein looks at his own copy of the wall map on the station chief's office wall. He runs his hand once across the empty space between Lisbon and Ain Zerga. He picks up the internal telephone and calls the station's chief operations officer. He says, "Get me Wood Pigeon, Laureate, Skimmer, Grackle, and Merganser. Full brief, station level. No cables outside the room. I want them in Nicosia by the end of March." The 5 field operatives who arrive at the Nicosia forward station in the last week of March 1995 are among the most quietly successful assets in Caesarea's southern Mediterranean roster, and none of them have worked together on the same operation before. Efrat Nadel, codename Wood Pigeon, 39 years old, 6 years running the Barcelona and Lisbon Iberian trade circuit under the legend of Livia Contarini, a Venetian textile importer whose office in Barcelona's Example she has held since 1989, and whose real registration in the Venetian Chamber of Commerce has been maintained by a compliant Scion family for twice as long. Nir Ashkenazi, codename Rossio, 44, 10 years in Marseille under the legend of Antoine Salame, a Lebanese-Armenian textile buyer resident on the Rue Paradis since 1979, with a warehouse on the Quai de la Joliette and a modest social circle among the Marseille Levantine merchant families. Gadi Weiss-Moore, codename Skimmer, 41, 4 years in Naples, and Palermo under the legend of Marco Vaglioni, a Genoese trade catalog photographer whose studio in the Vomero district of Naples is a real business and whose invoices to Milanese and Turin publishing houses are real invoices. Dov Ariel, codename Grackle, 46, 7 years in Athens under the legend of Kostas Vlachos, a Piraeus shipping clerk. And Yoav Nachum, codename Merganser, 37, the youngest of them. 3 years in Ain el Beida under the legend of Idris ben Salim, a French-born émigré grandson of a Souk Aras Korkok family who returns to the Wilaya every 2 years for a fortnight of family visits. Feinstein briefs them on the 28th of March in a conference room on the ground floor of the Nicosia station building. Doors locked, windows blinded, no cables in or out. He walks through the file in 90 minutes. He walks through the prediction in 40. He walks through the brief in 20. The brief is short. Wood Pigeon will be in Lisbon on the 2nd of May, at Rossio station, in a cafe with a view of the Western Concourse and the 3rd booth from the north. She will identify the caller and transmit the identification to Nicosia within 4 minutes. She will not approach the booth herself. Laureate, Skimmer, Grackle will be, respectively, in Marseille, Naples, and Athens, at the booths from which Toomey has called in the past, with instructions to observe those booths from a distance in the 1600 window of the 2nd Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of May. On the small chance that Segal's model is wrong and Toomey returns to an old city. Merganser will be in Ain Zerga, in the coffee house across the square from the PTT Bureau, in the 1600 village time window, to confirm the ritual has been enacted at the terminus and to observe Sami Kesab handle the register in real time. No one is asked to catch him. No one is asked to detain him. No one is armed. The operation is an identification. The kill order has not been requested and will not be requested until the identification has been made. The compartment is airtight. Only Feinstein, Neeman, Segel, Padet, the head of the institute, and the operational members of the field team are cleared. Woodpigeon and Ashkenazi have never met before the 28th of March and will not meet again. Merganser does not know and will not know until the file is retired 4 years later that the widow whose PTT bureau he is watching is the mother of the man who is being identified in Lisbon at the same minute. The last 4 weeks are quiet. The 5 operatives return to their cover cities. Neeman and Segel stay at Glilot. Feinstein flies to Tel Aviv on the 11th of April for the standing quarterly meeting with Padet, at which nothing is said out loud that has not already been agreed. The wall map at Glilot acquires no new pins. The whiteboard behind Neeman's desk keeps its prediction. Segel runs the model twice more, on the 15th of April and the 28th of April, both runs producing the same output. In the last week of April, a Marconi liaison via Tevel to Portugal is quietly stood up under a cover reason relating to a Portuguese counter-narcotics inquiry that is, on paper, a Marconi collaboration with the Guardia Nacional Republicana. The liaison has one operative provision. On the first 3 Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays of May, the Rossio station Western Concourse's third booth from the north will be under a soft-monitored CDR pull, with results available to the Portuguese partner within 30 minutes of the 1600 call. Marconi does not ask why. Tevel does not tell. Wednesday, 3rd of May, 1995. 1600 village time in Ein Zerga is 1500 local time in Lisbon. The 2 clocks run through the hour that follows in parallel and are edited together here for the first time. At 1442, Lisbon time, Efrat Nadel, Woodpigeon, takes her usual table at a cafe on the north side of the Praça Dom Pedro IV, the square Lisbonites call Rossio. The cafe is an ordinary one, unremarkable in itself, and Efrat Nadel, Livia Contarini, Venetian textile importer, is on her second day in the city, in Lisbon, on the ordinary business of the summer buying trip that is the annual pretext for her presence in Iberia every May. From her table, she has a diagonal line of sight through the cafe's front window and across the western half of the concourse of Rossio station, to the payphone bank on the western wall, and specifically to the third booth from the north. She orders a coffee and a soft-boiled egg. She reads a fashion trade magazine. She does not look at the payphone bank more than once every 45 seconds. At 1548 village time, in the coffee house on the Ein Zerga square, Yoav Nachum, Merganser, has finished his 3rd glass of mint tea. He has been at the coffee house since 1400. The proprietor is his second cousin by marriage. The second cousin has spent the afternoon telling him about the cork harvest and the price of goats and the state of the Wilaya road. Merganser, Idris Ben Salim, the French-born émigré nephew, has listened. The bureau across the square is quiet. Ahmed Kessab is at the counter. Sami Kessab arrives at 1550 to take the afternoon shift. Ahmed leaves through the side door. Merganser, from his table, cannot see the switchboard. He can see the register on the wooden table when Sami turns to reach for a fresh page. And he sees that the page is open. He looks away. At 1456 Lisbon time, a Middle Eastern man in his early 50s, graying at the temples in a beige raincoat over a dark gray suit, walks into the western entrance of Rossio station from the direction of the Elevador de Santa Justa. He carries a small briefcase, brown, worn. He walks with a slight limp on the left. He does not look at the concourse or at the payphone bank. He walks the diagonal length of the concourse toward the eastern exit, as if he is passing through. At the halfway point of the concourse, he turns 90 degrees left, walks to the western wall's third booth from the north, sets the briefcase between his feet, and lifts the receiver. He inserts a Portugal Telecom coin card. He dials 13 digits. At 15:59 village time and 14:59 Lisbon time, the switchboard in the Ain Zerga bureau rings. Sami Kessab picks up the receiver. He says, in Arabic, Bureau of the Post, Ain Zerga. He hears nothing for 1 second. Then a male voice says, in Arabic, the widow Toumi, please. Sami Kessab writes in the register, 1600, incoming Portugal South, recipient the widow Toumi. He lays down the pen. He turns to the small speaker set beside the switchboard, which is wired to the loudspeaker in the square. And he says the widow Toumi's name once, in the flat voice he uses for the announcement. Zora Toumi has been sitting on the wooden bench inside the bureau since 1540. She does not need to be fetched. She rises. She walks to the switchboard. Sami Kessab hands her the receiver. In the cafe, Efrat Nadel, Livia Contarini, has not looked away from the western concourse of Rossio for the past 3 minutes. She has seen the Middle Eastern man walk the diagonal, turn to the payphone bank, lift the receiver, and dial. She sees him standing very still in the booth with the receiver to his ear, his back 3/4 toward her. She notes his height, a little over 5 feet 9 inches, his coat, the slight limp, the gray at the temples visible under a soft brown hat. She notes the moment he begins to speak. His shoulder shifts and his jaw moves. She counts under her breath. Zora Toumi holds the receiver against her right ear. Sami Kessab has stepped back 3 paces from the switchboard, out of the register's line of sight and out of the caller's earshot, as he has done every year for the previous 3 years since he was recruited and every year for the 10 years before that, when he was not. The receiver is heavy in her hand. She waits. She hears breathing. Then the same voice she has heard in this bureau every year of the past decade says, in Arabic, Umi, it is I. It is the word for my mother. It is followed by a pause of 1 1/4 seconds. Then the voice says, are you well? Zora Toumi says, in Arabic, I am well, my son. The goats are well. The winter was mild. The cork was thin. The voice says, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. Praise be to God. There's a pause of 2 seconds. The voice says, I love you, my mother. Zora Toumi says, I love you, my son. May God protect you. The voice says, Ma'as-salama. Peace be with you. Zora Toumi says, Ma'as-salama, my son. The line goes dead. She hands the receiver back to Sami Kessab. She walks back to the wooden bench. She sits down. She looks at her hands. The elapsed time on the switchboard, entered by Sami Kessab in the register as he closes the entry, is 52 seconds. Sami Kessab writes the number in his usual careful hand. He leaves the register open on the table. At 1501 Lisbon time, the man in the beige raincoat hangs up the receiver in the 3rd booth from the north on the western concourse of Rossio station. He removes the Portugal Telecom coin card from the slot. He picks up the brown briefcase. He walks 11 paces to a wire mesh wastebasket bolted to a station column. He drops the card in the basket. He walks the diagonal back across the concourse toward the western entrance. He is out of the station at 1504. He turns south on the Rua Aurea. He is out of Efrat Nadel's line of sight at 1505. At 1506, Efrat Nadel leaves 11 escudos on the table for the coffee and the egg, folds the trade magazine into her handbag, and walks out of the Café Nicola. She does not follow the man. She turns north on the Praça Dom Pedro IV and walks 4 blocks to the Rossio branch of the Banco Espirito Santo, where she places, from the branch's public telephone, a routine collect call to a number in Nicosia belonging to the Contarini import office. The person who answers is Feinstein. She speaks in Italian for 4 minutes, about a Portuguese cork order and a shipping problem, and a Naples buyer who is being difficult. Feinstein listens. She uses 11 specific phrases that, in the code she and Feinstein agreed on in Nicosia 3 weeks earlier, describe subject present, subject identified, subject 3/4 view observed, subject height 5'9" to 5'11", subject build medium, subject age 50 to 55, subject mustache heavy, subject hair gray at temples, subject limp left leg slight, subject coat beige raincoat over dark suit, subject sanction to sanction path unknown. The 4 minutes end. She hangs up. She walks back to her hotel on the Avenida da Liberdade. She spends the rest of the afternoon shopping for cork samples at 3 Baixa suppliers. In the morning, she flies to Barcelona. At 1531 Lisbon time, a plainclothes officer of the Policia Judiciaria, on a soft-monitored assignment for a Portuguese counter-narcotics inquiry the officer does not know is a cover, walks the western concourse of Rossio station and lifts the metal insert from the wire mesh basket beside the 3rd booth from the north. He puts the insert in a black canvas bag. He drives to the Policia Judiciaria's headquarters on Rua Gomes Freire. The bag is inventoried at 1614. The basket contains 3 newspapers, 2 Sagres bottles, 4 cigarette butts, a coffee shop napkin, and 1 used Portugal Telecom coin card. The card is bagged, tagged, and forwarded to Lisbon Marconi's technical branch by courier the same evening. On the 5th of May, Marconi's technical branch returns a chip fingerprint report to the Policia Judiciaria cover officer, who returns it to Tevel. The last 3 destinations on the card, in order of most recent first read: 1. An Einzerga village bureau destination, duration 52 seconds. 2. A Barcelona local hotel switchboard destination, duration 1 minute 9 seconds. 3. A Marseille local car hire office destination, duration 2 minutes 23 seconds. At the Nicosia station, Feinstein receives Efrat Nadel's coded phrases at 1514 Nicosia time. He is at the operations desk. He picks up the internal line to Glilot. He asks for Neeman. When she comes to the phone, he says, in Hebrew, "It is him. She has him." He does not add anything else. He hangs up. In her office at Glilot, Rina Neeman puts the receiver down slowly. She sits at her metal desk for a long time. Then she stands, walks to the wall map, and puts the 11th red pin in Lisbon. She writes on a fresh index card, 3rd May, 1995. Rossio. 3rd booth from north. 52 seconds. Identified. He is one man. He has been one man. She dates it. She pins it under the 11th pin. It is the last card she will ever write for the file. The last paragraph of the Vespertine file is written by Rina Neeman between the 4th and the 9th of June, 1995. It is 52 pages long, drafted at her metal desk in Glilot in longhand, and then typed on the compact LTE by Tomer Siegel, who reads it 3 times before he prints it and hands it back to her without comment. She rereads it once. She initials the cover page. She walks it up 2 flights to Aviva Pade, who takes it home for the weekend and returns it on the 12th of June with 3 green ticks in the margin and 1 signature at the bottom of the final page. From Pade it goes, by internal courier, to the head of research division. From him it goes, on the 16th of June, to the head of the institute. From the institute it goes, on the 20th of June, to a wooden desk at the Prime Minister's office in Jerusalem. The same desk that carries the daily intelligence brief. The same red-line signature that has closed every wet work file since the founding of the state. The file lies on that desk for 7 days. During that week, no one at Glilot speaks of it. Neeman goes to her office at 0800 hours each morning and leaves at 1900 hours each evening. She takes down the wall map on the 22nd of June, folds it once along the vertical axis, and places it in the middle drawer of her desk with the Nice Télécarte, the paragraph, and the mimeograph. The corkboard where the wall map has hung for 9.5 years is bare. She does not put anything on it. She looks at the empty corkboard every morning for the next 7 days and does not think anything in particular. She does not sleep well. On the 27th of June, the file returns to Feinstein at the Nicosia station with a single line of green ink at the bottom of the final page, in a handwriting Feinstein has seen exactly twice before in his 28-year career. The line reads, in Hebrew, authorized. The Hebrew word is meyushar. The date beneath is the 27th of June, 1995. There is no signature. The red line signature is not a name. It is the initial Shin, nothing more. Feinstein reads the word once. He puts the file in the operations safe. He walks to the operations desk, picks up the internal line to the compound's 5th floor operations planning room, and says, convene Kidon. The Kidon operational planning takes 6 weeks. Feinstein authors it. He is the mission commander at station. The Kidon team's 4 operatives arrive in Nicosia in the 2nd week of July under 4 separate cover legends, none of which Feinstein knows and none of which he asks about. They do not meet him in person. He does not know their names. He passes them the operational plan through a compartmented cutout on the 5th floor of the Nicosia station building. They read it. They modify 3 details of route and timing. They return it. He approves the modifications. They act. The plan uses none of the 10 years of Neeman's file, except its final page. The identification of the caller, the Lisbon confirmation, the physical description transmitted by wood pigeon on the 3rd of May. On the second to last page of the plan, there is a name. Boualem Faisal Toumi, Cunha Abu Nizar, and a photograph. The Portugal Telecom Rossio Station Transit Authority CCTV frame that shows the man in the beige raincoat in 3/4 view, standing at the 3rd booth from the north on the 4th of May at 1501 Lisbon time. The frame is grainy. The face is clear enough. Toumi's post-Tripoli sanctuary in the last months of his life is a 2-room apartment on the 3rd floor of a building on Odos Heracleu, in the residential quarter of Nicosia inside the Green Line, 3 streets north of the barricade at the end of Ledra. He has been there since November 1994, under a false Lebanese Christian merchant identity that has been supplied to him by a cutout in a Damascus faction who is unwitting of the Israeli file and who is not. Feinstein is meticulous about this. An asset. Toumi has been living quietly. He goes out at midday for coffee and a newspaper on Ledra. He returns to the apartment by 1400. He does not receive visitors. On the morning of the 23rd of July, 1995, at 11:42 local time, he takes an outbound call from a payphone booth on Odos Onasagoru, a call whose caller, according to a later post-operation reconstruction, is a cutout he has himself instructed to contact him only in extremity. Toumi listens for 8 minutes. He puts down the receiver. He walks the 400 meters back to Odos Heracleu, climbs the 3 flights of stairs to the apartment, and lets himself in. He puts the newspaper on the low table by the window. He walks into the small kitchen at the back of the apartment. He puts the kettle on. At 11:54, he unlocks the apartment door for the second time that morning to a man he believes is the building's landlord's nephew, arriving with a package. The narration of the operational moment is clinical and reads, in the after-action file, in 3 sentences. The door opens. The sanction is enacted at close range. with a single suppressed round to the base of the skull. The door is closed. The kettle finishes boiling 3 minutes after the door closes. The apartment is left as it stood, minus one man on the kitchen floor. The Kidon team is out of Nicosia within the hour, on 4 separate departures through 4 separate borders. Feinstein learns of the completion at 13:20 local time from a cutout on the 5th floor. He does not communicate the news to Glilot until the following morning at 0600, when he cables one word to Neeman's desk: Vespertine. The 8th of August, 1995, is a Sunday. In the Ain Zerga PTT Bureau, on the first Sunday of August, as on every first Sunday of every month, Ahmed Kessab is at the counter for the morning shift, and Sami Kessab is at the counter for the afternoon shift. At 1600 village time, the switchboard rings. Sami Kessab picks up the receiver. He hears nothing for 1 second. Then he hears breathing, a slow, deliberate breathing that is not silence, but is not speech. He waits. The breathing continues. He hears no voice. He does not know what to do. He does not close the call. He waits. In the square outside, Zora Toumi is not on the bench inside the bureau. The first Sunday of August is not an annual call day, and she has no reason to be. Sami Kessab lets the line stay open. He does not know why he does. The breathing continues for 53 seconds. Then the line goes dead. Sami Kessab writes in the register, 1600 hours, incoming trunk unspecified, no origin, no name given, no recipient requested, duration 53 seconds, breathing only, no message. He puts down the pen. He does not tell Ahmed. He does not tell anyone. He goes on with his afternoon. The call is not traced. The Unit 8200 watch list against the Ain Zerga terminating number has been stood down since the end of May, on the basis that the operation is closed and the file retired. The call arrives inside a metadata window in which no one is looking. If it had been the 8th of May, the metadata would have flagged the call at the Marseille-Algiers trunk gateway within 11 minutes of hang-up. It is the 8th of August. No one flags anything. In the archive of the Algerian PTT's Souk Ahras Wilaya office, the entry in the incoming trunk record for the 1600 call on the 8th of August 1995 reads only, "Trunk data corrupted at gateway, origin not resolvable." It is the only such entry in the Wilaya's records for the month. It is possible that the call was made by a colleague of Toumi's in Damascus who had been told about the annual ritual and who wanted, in some quiet way, to keep faith with the dead. It is possible that it was made by an operations chief in Tripoli who wanted to know from the silence whether the mother had been informed and how she was bearing the news. It is possible that it was a wrong number. It is possible that it was a technical fault on the Marseille-Algiers trunk. There is no record on which side of that question the operation ever settled. In Rina Neeman's file, the 8th of August 1995 entry, added by Siegel in October when he was clearing the file's supplementary drawer for archive, is 1 line long. It reads, "One further incoming call. No caller, no message. 53 seconds. Closing the record." Zora Toumi lives another 9 years. She dies in Ain Zerga on the 23rd of November 2004 of pneumonia in the house 400 meters up the main street from the PTT Bureau at the age of 85. She never learns that her son died on the 23rd of July 1995 in an apartment on Odos Heracleu in Nicosia. She never learns that the annual call was tracked. She never learns the names of Rina Neeman, Yehuda Feinstein, Efrat Nadal, or Yoav Nachum. Her funeral is attended by the 2 Kessab cousins from the Bureau and by 19 of the village's elders. She is buried in the Ain Zerga cemetery under a small stone that reads, in Arabic, her name and her father's name, and the two dates. Naima Sekak Toumi, the widow in Tripoli, is quietly informed by a faction cutout in late August 1995 that her husband died in Cyprus in a car accident, and that his effects have been passed to a mosque in Nicosia for distribution to the poor. She believes it. She remarries a distant cousin in October 1997 and moves to Benghazi. She lives quietly. She does not appear in any subsequent Israeli file. The paradox of Operation Vespertine is not a paradox that 10 years of patience resolves. It is a paradox that 10 years of patience makes sharper. Boualem Faisal Toumi planned 3 European operations before he vanished in December 1984. The one that succeeded, in Antwerp in November 1983, killed a Jewish schoolteacher named Batia Halberstadt as she left an evening lecture at the university. The paperwork that connected Toumi to the planning was captured 6 weeks later at the Belgian Federal Police's Antwerp headquarters and forms. In the Vespertine file's second appendix, 4 pages of transcribed cell testimony. The 10 years of the annual call were 10 years in which Toumi planned nothing more. Because the ritual of the annual call was his one link back to the world, and it was also the surface by which he was reached. Without the annual call, he would have been unreachable, and Batia Halberstadt would have been unavenged. With the annual call, he was reachable, and Batia Halberstadt was avenged. That is one side. The other side is that the operation reached him through his mother. It reached him through a widow's yearly walk to a village post office. The recruited clerk was told nothing about the weight of the register he was leaving open. The mother was told nothing about the call that was being logged. The 60-second rule was Toumi's own discipline, and the 10 years he survived because of that rule were the 10 years his mother had left to hear his voice. When the file closed, the surface by which he was reached was closed too. Zora Toumi's phone rang once more on a Sunday, and then it never rang again. She lived 9 more years and never knew why. The engagement question that this hour and a half puts to you is not whether Operation Vespertine was justified. It is a question about the shape of patience. Where does patience become predation? And does the answer change if the victim is a planner of murder? Comment below with what you think, and let us know if the way this file was built changes your answer. If you have made it this far, you understand why Blueprint Watch exists. We do the long, patient tradecraft stories that other channels won't. If this file held your attention for 90 minutes, subscribe, drop a comment, and share the episode with the one friend who watches things like this the way we do. Start to finish, no shortcuts. Editor No Ete, Batia Halberstadt, is a spoken friendly rendering. True spelling is printed.